Talk CDL is brought to you today by National Carriers. National Carriers is a reefer company in Dallas with nice T680s looking for lease purchase drivers. Call them at 888-311-7076. We're also brought to you by Carter Lumber. Carter Lumber has over 160 locations east of the Mississippi, and they are looking to hire local home everyday Class A and Class B drivers. You can check them out at carterlumber.com/talkcdl. There's a little form there for you, carterlumber.com/talkcdl. And we are also brought to you by LoadSmart Camions. LoadSmart, that's K-A-M-I-O-N-S. Break-even calculator. Today, with the cost of fuel through the roof, the break-even calculator is something that every owner-operator or small or big trucking company needs. And you can find that at Camion, KAMION.io/talkcdl. It's a free download, and it will show you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. It'll help you save money. Camion.io/talkcdl. Get their break-even calculator today. Hello, Ruth Ann.
Hello, Troy.
So, so much going on in trucking right now. I don't even know where to start. We've got a blitz coming up here in July. We want to talk about that today. We've got an interesting, really crazy, weird story that I didn't see on any of the big sites this week. A trucker kind of got in trouble trying to douse a 1-year-old kid in flammable liquid at a truck stop and light him on fire. A little bit weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I've got that story and a couple other things, but, I wanted to talk to you about this week. One of our good friends got fired at a trucking company.
Yeah, it happens, but he was really good at his job.
Yeah, and this is what I want to talk to people about. Now, he was a safety director at a trucking company, and the problem was he and the operations man couldn't get along.
That makes for a very hard office relationship when you want to butt heads with each other.
Yeah, and I would tell anybody that's out there, you got a tough job to do. Trucking is, we all know trucking is one of the toughest industries there is. And if you're an operations manager, they call that the battle zone. If you're the guy in the operations over everything, you're in the go to hell, the FU division. That's, you've got an operations manager, depending on the size of the trucking company. He's got dispatchers that are dealing with drivers. And it's just, you've got crazy stuff going on all day long. And an operations guy he's got to be pretty tough. He's got to have thick skin. And then you've got your safety director, which is, the opposite of the company. And he's also over recruiting usually. And the safety director himself, he's got a job to do. He's got, in fact, both guys, safety and operations, usually wear many hats.
They usually do, because there's not, when you're a safety director, you do have a lot to do to oversee the trucks. Not only that, but a lot of times in the safety division, same with recruiting, operations, dispatch, they all end up not having, the companies don't have enough people to spread out to do individual jobs. So safety ends up going and doing a little bit of recruiting, or they might do a little bit of operations. Then you have operations having to flow over into some of the other departments, mainly because of the fact they don't have enough personnel to do each division fully, because safety takes a lot of time up.
Right, but safety and operations are the total opposite on the spectrum. And normally they don't get involved in each other's jobs. But what happens is, okay, and here's really what happens. If a safety director is over recruiting and you have drivers that quit or have issues, a lot of times operations comes back and they want to point the finger to the recruiting department on why there's a troublesome driver there, or why a driver quits, or blah, blah, blah. And I'll get into that in a second. But what I wanted to say though, first off, a lot of trucking companies today have gone to separating safety and recruiting. In the old style trucking company, the safety director was over the recruiting department. Okay. And a driver couldn't get approved to come into orientation until the safety director signed off on him. The safety director was the guy looking over everything. But the problem with that was if there was an accident, that day, and let's say recruiting had, let's just take, say, a 200 truck company. Let's say they had, recruiting had 10 applications that are completed for the safety director to look at, but there was an accident that day in the company, and the safety director, his attention now is on the accident.
Right.
Okay, so his natural reaction is going to be, well, recruiting can wait.
Yeah, because he feels as though the accident was more important, which 90% of the time, of course, it is.
Okay, and, we can say that's more important, but, okay, is it more important now if there's a death? Yeah, but here's the problem. To safety, it's more important. But,
right.
to recruiting, you got 10 applications, and everybody knows in the trucking industry how important every driver application is. And so now let's say you had 10 applications that needed approval, and the safety director had the attitude of, hey, man, you're just going to have to wait. And now you've got drivers calling recruiters saying, yeah, was I approved yet? And of course, they can't give them the answer of yes.
Right.
And so now what happens? The driver goes and he takes another job somewhere else to another company that approves him quicker. And so the battle begins now between safety and recruiting. The drivers don't wait.
No, they don't. They don't have to wait when it comes to technology today. Also, when it comes to all the ways to get them approved, the only way that a driver has to wait is the companies that he worked for if the VOE needs to come back. But when you were saying about the importance of the accident, and I had answered that it is to them. Each person, their job is that division or that department of it is most important. So the safety director is not going to look at it like you said. You're going to wait to the driver and to the recruiters, and then that's where the recruiting department bats heads with the safety.
And that's what I was going to say. That's where the fight begins, because the safety director, he's got a job to do, but the recruiting director or the recruiting manager or even just the recruiter has a job to do also.
Right.
So let's say the recruiting side of the company works all week, and now there's an issue where safety can't get to the applications and give them the approval. Well, now, right away, the recruiting side is going to be flipping out, because now at the end of the week, they don't get any drivers coming in to replace any empty trucks. Mm-hmm. And so now whose ass is in a sling for the week? The recruiting department is. So now in the Monday morning meeting, now when they go, well, we only got one driver in orientation and we got 5 empty trucks. Sorry, owner of the company. Mm-hmm. Well, right away, the recruiting department's pissed off at the safety department because they held them up.
Right.
And so now, they could say, well, safety screwed us up. We had it on his desk and we lost the drivers because the drivers don't wait. And then safety comes back and says, well, I had an accident to deal with. That's why a lot of trucking companies now, they have a guy that can understand. First off, it's not rocket science being able to approve a driver. You pull his PSP, his DAC, his MVR, his criminal background, you get everything in the gate, and you look at it and you say, okay, here's the guidelines. Does he meet it? He's got a clean MVR. He doesn't have any accidents. He doesn't have this. Why does safety need to sign off on something like that? They don't.
They don't. No.
They absolutely don't. In fact, you should have a guy that is over recruiting or that is the recruiter that can say, I'm bringing him in. You know what? If something comes back that the driver lied, Well, you send them home. It's no big deal. It's the same thing if safety would approve them.
Exactly.
But the bottom line is you don't hold up a process because another department has what he thinks is a more important job.
Correct. And that's what I was saying.
Right. So that's what happens in those departments. Now, going back to this safety director that was fired. We know the guy. He's a friend, like you said. We've got a lot of friends in drivers, recruiting, safety, operation, all that stuff, And this particular guy, like you said, was really good at his job.
Yeah, I think he was.
But he batted heads with the operations guy. And I'm not trying to tell anybody out there, that operations is more important than safety. But when you're at your job, you should try to know your place. I mean it. You should know that, okay, this guy has been here 10 years. And in fact, the safety guy that we know is only there less than 2 years. The other guy had been there like 15 years. So he got fired because whenever a driver would quit operations, the operations manager was sending the safety director an email saying, you keep hiring these bad drivers, but and so it goes down to whose fault is it now that the driver quit? And so the safety director.
Safety.
Well, see, that's the problem with a lot of operations people. They blame recruiting and safety
because they think that the recruiting department brought in people that were liars, cheaters. They don't realize that if they would have signed off on them, it'd be the same thing. You can't tell what a person's like until after they come in, first of all. Second of all, when a driver comes in and he starts working, which this is what you're going to say, and I cut you off to try and get it out.
That's all right, go ahead.
When the drivers come in, the operations is just that. They're the ones that operate everything when it comes to the trucks and what they're doing. So that's who the company depends on to make sure everything runs. And if the driver comes in, he could be a perfect driver, but if operations don't do their job properly, what's going to happen, Troy?
Well, and I was going to exactly touch on that. What I believe is when truck drivers quit a company, I believe it's 99% operational issues.
I believe you.
Now, here's the only time that you can say that it's recruiting. If drivers are coming and quitting within a week or two, like an abundance of it, I'd say then they're being lied to.
Right.
Okay. But other than that, when you get a driver that starts with a trucking company, and let's check the boxes for a second. His MVR is good.
Yep.
He's got a decent work history. Mm-hmm. Okay. And he doesn't have like a lot of bad references. Plus the guy's very cooperative with recruiting and safety. He's not a jackass, and he's just he's got a positive attitude, all that stuff. Well, you're bringing from that angle, you see it. That's a good driver. Then all of a sudden, a month or two later, right? He's a total different driver. Mm-hmm. Now, all of a sudden, he's not getting home like he was promised. And see, this is what I was going to say. Recruiting can only tell the driver what operations tells them they can do for them. So right. Recruiting is the representative of operations. It's the truth. So let's, for example, a recruiter might tell a driver, okay, we're going to get you home every 2 weeks. Here's your pay, and here's the average miles. Okay. Well, and here's the equipment, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is the truth. The equipment, the only way the recruiting department knows what is available comes from either the shop or operations. They say, okay, we've got a 22, we got a 19, we got this, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times a driver will come in, and I've talked to drivers that have gone to different companies, and they'll say, yeah, I was promised a brand new Kenworth, and I got there, and I'm in a Mack.
Right. That's not what he was told.
Yeah, you already are hiring your own turnover when you do that. Or, for example, remember when we worked for Elderlight? We were we were running for that casket company in Indiana years ago. And do you remember I'll never forget the recruiting call ever. The guy's name was Glenn Craig. Really nice guy, right? He was from Indiana. And I had called about an ad. Well, actually, I think I met a driver that told me about it. And I called them, and he's there. We lived in Pennsylvania at the time. And he was the recruiter and safety guy. And Glenn says to me, you need to, because I told him I need to be home every weekend. Remember, we were trying to find a home weekend job. And we lived off of 78 in Pennsylvania. He's there, will you take New York loads? I said, I'll take New York every week. Give it to me, man. I don't care. I've run Brooklyn a million times. So he literally right there yells over to the ops guy, hey, I got this guy Troy on the phone. He said he'll run New York as long as you can get him home every week. He goes, they love you already. Come on down. And so I go to work for them. The first maybe 2-3 weeks, I get home every week. After that, it's every couple weeks. Mm-hmm. Now, I stayed there a few years,
right?
But the bottom line is, it was just an outright BS lie. Okay, so I could have been typical and said, "F this, I'm going to go looking for another job," but I didn't. But yeah,
because it was still a good job,
right? And a lot of times these drivers, I was talking to a driver the other day. He said he's at this company. They get him home every weekend, right? And he said the last 3 weeks. He's supposed to be home on a Friday. He's only running 3 states, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. This is what this guy does. So it's not hard to get the guy home when he lives right in the middle. He lives in Ohio, right? And they said the last 3 weeks in a row, Friday morning, they knew where he was unloading, and they didn't have a load for him. By the end of the day, he had to deadhead home, and they totally messed his pay up because he could have been running a load for that day. Mm-hmm. So he's probably going to quit, this guy. So all I'm saying is that's an operational issue.
Right.
You have a dispatcher, and I know this company, you have a dispatcher that can get freight. It's not that hard. There's freight everywhere, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a lazy dispatcher. He doesn't have the guy pre-planned, so he knows the guy's emptying out in Dayton, Ohio, right? And he's 2 hours from his home, and all he's got to do is get him a load. And the guy's willing to deliver it on a Saturday if need be also. Mm-hmm. So he's flexible. But guess what? They got a dispatcher that's not doing what he's supposed to do. So now this guy's going to quit, and then they're going to probably come back and go, "So you hired another bad driver." And they're going back and forth, and they were fighting this safety director and this operations manager. Operations kept, bitching about the drivers, but the safety director said they were fine when they got here. They were good drivers when they got here. After a month or two working under you guys, now they're wanting to quit. Mm-hmm. So I would just say that everybody wants to pass the buck.
That is true.
Everybody wants to blame each other for the problem. And, if we're being honest about the different departments fighting with each other over why a driver quits, I blame safety, I blame recruiting, I blame operations, all that blame game. Let me tell you something. Really what it comes down to is the industry. These guys are gone from their home a week, 2-3 weeks at a time. It wears on them. The trucking is just not for everybody, Ruth Ann.
No, it's not.
So I would just tell everybody, I would tell all you safety directors, know your place. Usually the operations guy takes precedent over everybody. And if you can't get along in your trucking company, your time is probably limited there.
Well, I would say, know your place. Don't get involved in the other departments. Stay in your own. But also, if there's drivers leaving, find out what the reasonings are and keep looking at them. They're going to be telling you what your problem is, where your turnover is going to stop. If it happens to be, dispatch, or if it happens to be, the recruiter lied, or if it happens to be, something else, it's going to come out. Drivers don't come in and say the same thing over and over and over and it be something else. It's going to be whatever they keep saying, whether it's their equipment, even home time. Hey, I was told I was going to get this many miles and I'm not getting near that. That's that's a part where you have to look at, you know?
Do you remember when we used to work with that retention company? Like, I'm talking 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We used to have we were involved in retention, and what we used to do is we had people that would interview. We would when a trucking company had a driver quit, we would interview the driver and find out why, and it was all done on graphs. Find out why he quit and the reasoning. And there was this company in Indiana that had a they hauled oversized. They were overhaulers, okay, and they wanted us to find out why their drivers were quitting. Okay, they were losing a certain amount of drivers, and so we were doing these interviews, and the drivers that were quitting within like 90 days, I think 50% of them or 70% of those drivers said the night dispatcher.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yep, he was a total jackass. Every one of them kept saying, man, he wouldn't answer the phone. He wouldn't do this. He was rude. He was blah, blah, blah. And then the other thing they had was 10% of their drivers were quitting because they would turn in their toll receipts and they'd have to beg to get paid. Mm-hmm. And they just didn't like it. But the bottom line was this guy in the night dispatcher was running people off. I mean, like you said earlier, the numbers don't lie, and this was like a constant, every time we would do it, this guy's name would come up. I was like, man, that's a pattern. I mean, obviously the graph was high for this one particular. So when we sat down, and one of the reasons why we don't really do it anymore is because most trucking companies really don't want to know a lot of their own problems. It's the truth.
It is true.
When you sit down with a trucking company and you go, and this is what happened with us when we sat down with this trucking company. We said, hey, look, here's why your drivers are quitting on this particular graph right here. They had like 100 and some trucks, I think, and they had like 15, 20 drivers quit in 90 days, in that year because of this night guy. And so we told them, and then we found out, well, he was the owner's brother.
Yeah.
Brother-in-law. I think it was the owner's brother-in-law or something like that. He was married to the owner's wife, or, the owner's sister, the owner's sister's husband. Anyway, so this is where they stuck this guy. And I thought to myself, and after that, they didn't really want us to do any more work. After we said, well, here's your problem, and so, it was a tough decision for them to make, and I don't think that they terminated the guy. But it made me think that's probably why he was on night dispatch, because he couldn't get along with anybody. They stuck him when the place was almost empty, He
should be in truck wash.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, here's a guy that was running people off, but they didn't want to do anything about it. So, you don't want to offend your sister? The owner didn't want to offend his sister by firing her husband? Or like you said, put him in a damn truck wash. But the bottom line is, if you really want to know, look at your numbers.
Yeah.
Look at your numbers why drivers are quitting. If you have drivers that are quitting within a week or two, I would say that's a recruiting issue. That's definitely a recruiting issue. But if you have drivers that are quitting 30, 60, 90 days out, a year, 6 months, whatever, that's always going to be an operational issue. Look in the mirror and straighten it out. If you got a dispatcher that is constantly having, like, if you got a bunch of drivers that are always calling you saying, hey, I want to change dispatchers. Mm-hmm. Okay. Guess what? I would tell you, if it's one certain dispatcher that they're always asking to change from, I know it's tough to find good workers right now, but if you got a guy that's running off drivers, you're better off getting rid of that dispatcher.
Yeah, you're costing more money. But when you said if they leave within like a week or two, it could be recruiting. I agree with that mostly.
Yeah, not always. I get it. You're right.
Yeah, because when they're in orientation, they're going over everything the recruiter told them. So if the recruiter told them their mileage pay, their travel areas, their home time, all that, orientation, those people in there go over all of that stuff with them to make sure that they're still correct. So if there was an issue, you usually find out in orientation where a disconnect is being made. then when the driver goes out and he's doing, like, he goes to get his tractor and he's like, wait a second, I was told I was going to get this tractor. That might be something that you have to take a look at. Or once they start getting out and they start going, then, like if the miles aren't there or whatever. But, a lot of times when the miles aren't there in that first couple weeks, the drivers, if it's not the drivers not wanting to do the miles, it's that someone was lying.
Oh, and I agree with you. I've met drivers where they went to a trucking company and they got there, and their first week they're like half the miles they should be getting. Second week the truck is broke down. So it's not always a recruiting issue in the first week or two. All I'm saying is, what you should do is you should say, find out what, like you said, what did the recruiter tell the driver? Mm-hmm. And it's normally gone over by more than one person. And in fact, I always said, have them sign off on their pay, their home time, and their equipment. That way they can't come in and say, well, the recruiting department lied to me. That's actually a really easy fix.
Right.
If you just have all these digital releases that they have now, if you just had a little release that stated, I'm just checking off my pay, I'm checking off the truck I was told I'd get, I'm checking off the home time I get, and even the running areas. Guess what? Now it's not a recruiting issue.
Right.
At all.
You put that little paper in when the driver's getting his travel information. Okay, listen, we're going to give you your travel information in a couple hours, but we got to do this final checklist.
I've met trucking companies. I used to tell trucking companies that, hey, why don't you guys just have a little form that the driver has to sign off on? And 99% of them don't want to do that. I think it's because they need recruiting to blame. It's like, why wouldn't you want to do that? So anyways, that's just wanted to talk about this not recruiter, but this safety director that got fired. Guys, if you're in there batting heads in the office, eventually one of you are going to get fired. And I would tell you right now, the one that's going to get fired is the one, honestly, that hasn't probably been there long enough, or his job, because safety directors are not as important as the operations guy. I'm going to tell you that right now. In a trucking, the operation guy makes the money for the company. The safety guy is the stern, I call him the axe man. He's the guy that, is making sure the company's compliant. Yes, you need a good guy like that. But guess what? The guy that makes the money is always going to be the one that they favor if he's a good operations manager. So you safety directors, be careful if you're fighting with operations. So anyways, moving on, Ruthann.
Moving on. Do you know the New York governor has suspended the tax for fuel?
I've seen that. It's I guess it's for the rest of the year for 2022. Right. So what is the tax? That would be the next question. How much is the tax on a gallon?
Right now, the state's diesel tax rate is 15.55 cents per gallon.
So 15.55
cents per gallon.
So if you're paying $5.50, now you're going to be down to $5.35. So you're saving 15 cents, at 100 to 200 gallons of pop. That's a good savings.
It's a good savings. And what they did is they just went ahead and suspended it through the whole rest of this year. So nothing's going to happen again until 2023. And then beginning in June, Delaware and a few of the other counties are also going to be looking into the local sales tax in the same manner to continue. So they're trying to help drivers with different taxes and so forth.
When a truck driver calls a recruiting department, the first question out of his mouth a lot of the time is, do you do New York? Now the owner-operators will be like, hey, I want to go to New York. Save some money.
Hey, if it's anything, you can get a little bit, right?
Yeah, every little bit counts today. I'll be honest with you. I feel for owner-operators right now because especially an owner-operator that's pulling a dry van. Because in the last 6 to 8 weeks, they went from making super good money to wow. It's like unbelievable. The rates went down and the fuel went through the roof. And I don't want to be a buzzkiller, but they say it's not going to stop where it's at. And can I tell you something else? It's not going to go down really much. You know why it's not going to go down? Because the American people have proven, that we can afford it because nobody stopped driving. See, that's the issue. Now you look at why was fuel down a couple of years ago? Well, when COVID hit, nobody was driving. They had to sell the fuel. There was nobody driving. Truck drivers will tell you it was great. We were out on the road. You hardly seen a car. Well, that's when fuel was a buck something a gallon because they can't just let it sit. They got to sell it. So guess what? When they jacked the fuel up and COVID went away, guess what happened? Nothing. Everybody bitched and moaned a little bit. They're making jokes on Facebook. But guess what? They are legitimately driving, going traveling, doing their thing. They're not driving slow either. They're running like a racetrack down the road. Guess what? The American people can afford $75 to $100 a fill up on their gas tank. And I know somebody's bitching at me right now going, bullshit, Troy. But guess what? You guys you're proving it to this administration, to the government, to everybody, that you can afford it by driving. You know, if everybody would have stopped driving when the prices went up, Ruthann, guess what? They might have adjusted it, but it's too late. They know. It's just like houses. Everybody thinks that that's going to cool off and go down. The only way it goes down is if you have a recession or a depression.
Right.
Other than that, house prices ain't coming down. Rent ain't coming down. Fuel ain't coming down. It's not. Why? Because you guys are paying for it.
Yeah.
You're actually pulling your money out every day and paying for the things that are being overcharged right now, proving that we can afford it.
Right. As soon as the big guy is not going to sit there and say, okay, now that I got all this extra money in my pocket, I'm going to give some back to you. We're going to stop. We're just going to cut it off. I mean, New York doing that is like, oh my gosh, the people that tax so high, you know, going over the bridges and all. The place that sucks money out of the drivers is actually giving them a break.
Yeah, New York.
You know?
It's election time also. You know, I mean, you got to remember that. Everything is always around election.
Well,
they're looking to get elected.
And here we go. It's coming. It's slowly going to come back around that. So if you want to see any changes are going to come, it's not going to come yet. You're going to wait and see in another couple of years when all the election stuff starts coming out and everybody's gagging on it.
Okay, and we don't want to get into politics.
No.
Actually, we despise politics. It makes me want to throw up. I'd rather the politics of trucking, you know, because trucking is full of politics. But let's move on, Ruthann. How about we talk about another sponsor? How about DriveWise?
DriveWise.
We're getting emails from drivers and little companies saying, we use DriveWise. We love DriveWise. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So it's DriveWise.com. And, you know, it's an app-based scale avoider, or whatever you want to call it, a bypasser, rather. So if you want to bypass the scales without having a machine put in your truck, just go online to drivewise.com, DriveWyze.com. Get the app, and guess what? You're rolling. It's that quick. You're rolling by the scales that fast. So drivewise.com, DriveWyze.com. Ruthann, also your buddies over there at JJ Keller. JJ Keller's been a sponsor of the show for many years, and people love JJ Keller.
I love JJ Keller, and I don't use them.
You know, JJ Keller is one of those people that's kind of like, I don't want to say like in the background, but they're like, it's almost like the little symbols you see that you never take notice to. JJ Keller is that company. You know what I mean? They're the trucker secretary. They handle all D.O.T. paperwork. If you're a small company, a big company, no job is too small. Call them at 888-601-2017. If you're short-staffed, these people can really give you a hand. 888-601-2017. And Ruthann, we've got one last sponsor to mention, and that's driving-tests.org. And I want to tell you, a good friend of ours from the show failed their CDL test recently and is having problems. And I've told them, I said, listen, they're going to a school where they're paying, I think it's $7,000. Okay. And I told them, listen, this is $49.95 for the month. Use it for a month. They guarantee you that you'll pass or your money back. You get at least a guarantee with these people. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, add it. You know, in fact, if you're a trucking school, go to driving-tests.org and sign up today for the guarantee of your students passing their CDL. Moving on, Ruthann.
Moving on. You know, we just got back from vacation, so I'm like kind of in the cloud. We were on an island fishing, and you got a bad sunburn. I did.
Yeah.
Because someone didn't properly spray sunblock on my back.
Oh, I did. You can't, the Florida sun's killer. You know, I'm usually the guy with the sunburn, and you were like all burned up, and I wasn't. That was pretty cool. Not that I want you to be sunburned. I did spray you properly. I sprayed you down, girl. Here, I want to tell you about that story. Remember I was telling you about that story about that trucker that allegedly, no, I'm going to use the word allegedly tried to set a 1-year-old on fire at a Love's truck stop in New York.
I'm flabbergasted by that.
You know, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I believe it, but it's literally in an article here. It says a Florida truck driver. Oh, he's from Florida. A Florida truck driver was arrested after allegedly doused a 1-year-old in flammable liquid and tried to light the child on fire at a gas station in Tyre, New York. It says around 5:30 a.m. on Tuesday morning, the Seneca County Sheriff's Office responded to a Love's truck stop after a report of fires inside the building, police said in the press conference on Wednesday. Upon arriving at the scene, police say they located 2 suspects who allegedly started and attempted to start the fires. And the 2, one of whom has been identified as Jamie Avery Jr., were immediately detained. Upon further investigation, sheriff's deputy found that the 2 were in the company of a 1-year-old child that was covered in flammable liquid, said Sheriff Timothy Luce, adding that the child was rushed to Geneva General Hospital. It is alleged that the 2 suspects poured a flammable liquid on the 1-year-old child and attempted to light the child on fire inside the building, police said. Luckily, the 2 were unsuccessful. How crazy is that? Now, you know what I realized? It doesn't say he was a trucker. So he might have been like pulled up at a, well, here, actually, no, I apologize. Here, it says, after that, they found another 4-year-old inside the cab of a tractor trailer at the scene with head injuries. So he was a trucker. Now, I can't see anybody lighting their own kid on fire or any little kid on fire.
Well,
I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's
you have to go down to the demented minds of a person that abuses like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they used alleged like 2 or 3 times in the article. So my guess is,
because they can't say that he did. You know, they can't say certain things just yet. He's being detained and prosecuted. Mm-hmm. But if you have a child, like they didn't say, you know, they just said a child. They didn't kind of give the definition of his children.
That's true. It says a child. So I don't know. Bottom line is, truckers, don't light your kids on fire. And you know what? Allegedly. I'm going to use that word. Moving on, Ruth Ann.
Moving on.
Check this article out. And it's funny because it reminds me of back in my trucking days. It says, Georgia cops nabbed trucker who got stuck on back road for being massively overweight. And now here's really the bottom line. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to read to you what he did. Okay, so it looks like he was in a day cab, okay? But he's got a twin screw, and it looks like it's an end dump. But I don't know why. Maybe his trailer length, but he could only scale a total of 56,000 pounds. That was his legal weight, not 80,000. His total legal weight was 56,000. He was caught on a back road. The reason he was caught, he was avoiding scales, obviously. And the reason why he got caught is because he, I guess, swung a turn too hard on these windy roads and got stuck. So when they pulled him out, I guess D.O.T. was there. They weighed him 121,100 pounds. He was 65,100 pounds overweight. I know, he got a $3,255 fine. So that'll teach you not to avoid all those extra money he was making by avoiding the scales and hauling overweight just caught up to him.
Wow. I'm just, holy cow, going over that much, like double the weight.
Absolutely.
That is like, wow.
That's insane. So, one last thing I want to talk about real quick. Starting July 10th through the 16th is going to be Operation Safe Driver Week. And seven things CDL Life has out that truck drivers should know about it. And I'm going to just go over them real quick.
Okay.
So number 1, Operation Safe Driver Week is happening July 10th through the 22nd. In the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So it's a good thing. The whole North America is involved in Safe Driver Week. Number 2, it says the purpose of Operation Safe Driver Week is to reduce the number of crashes involving commercial motor vehicles on North American roadways. Number 3, law enforcement agencies will be targeting both commercial vehicles and passenger vehicles.
So cars are not exempt from this.
Cars are, yeah. If you're out there driving that week, you're not going to be exempt. It says the area of special emphasis for Operation Safe Driving Week is speeding. So the main thing they're looking for is going to be speeders. It says law enforcement will also be on the lookout for dangerous driving behaviors, including distracted driving, following too closely, improper lane change, and drunk and drugged driving. You know, and it's the texters that I'm hoping they catch.
I agree, because they're just as distracted, if not more, than a drunk driver. When
Right.
it comes to sometimes, I mean, a drunk driver is trying to focus really tough on it, but texters, they're everywhere.
I know, and it's kids too. So, and anyways, so number 6, during Operation Safe Driver Week 2021, law enforcement pulled over 28,148 people and 17,910 passenger vehicles. So they did it last year for passengers. And then number 7, Operation Safe Driving Week 2021, law enforcement issued 10,486 warnings and 16,863 citations. That's just in 1 week. So they are going to be looking to slow you down, do all that. And you know what? It's a good thing, though. To be honest with you, what they should do, Ruth Ann, they shouldn't even announce it. They shouldn't. They should just do the blitz. I mean, I don't understand why it's like you're getting a test. What? Yeah, you're getting a test. Why tell them?
It's not a pop test,
Yeah.
not a pop quiz. They're giving you a chance to study.
Yeah, exactly. So, bottom line, I think they ought to just do the damn blitz and without warning.
I agree, actually.
Before we go, I wanted to talk about one thing real quick. You and I were on our way to Orlando yesterday or the day before.
Day before.
And it's a crazy story. We're on our way to Orlando and we're going out. We get through Inverness, Florida. A lot of you guys know where that's at. We're on 44 and we're headed towards the turnpike. Okay. Well, all you do is you run into Wildwood right there by the Chrome. You pass the Chrome shop and you pass the Pilot, and then you get on I-75 south for like a quarter mile, and then you're on the turnpike on your way over to Orlando. Well, as we were halfway across 44, all I see is all these truckers coming the other way on 44 and then taking this little back road. And I already knew. What did I say to you?
You said something's going on up there.
I said
there's a blockage. There's something. Traffic's backed up. Something's happened up there.
Yeah, I said there's got to be a bad accident or something, because everybody's coming here to try to take this little shortcut to get down past whatever.
And then you said, hold on, because we were in my car. You said, I wish I had my CB.
Oh, and that's true. And I was like pissed off because I didn't have my CB. That's another show. But anyway, so we get up to Wildwood, and it takes us almost an hour just to get through Wildwood.
It was really, really crazy.
They have I-75 shut down. They have the turnpike shut down, right? And so Ruth Ann and I, we do this little joggy jog. We go up through the back roads and come out crazy, come all the way around. Finally, we get back on the turnpike down past where it was at. I mean, it must have took us 2 hours just to go 20 minutes worth of normal drive. Okay. And anyway, so we were trying to find what happened on I-75 or the turnpike that I'd never seen. Everything just shut down. It was insane. Finally, we get home that night and I look it up, and here, talk about drunk driving. Mm-hmm. A guy was driving drunk and he clipped a pickup truck that was towing a trailer. Made the pickup truck roll, and I believe the occupants in the pickup truck were all killed. This guy is going to prison for a long time. This guy is going to prison. I wonder if somebody caught that on dash cam. I bet you somebody caught that on dash cam.
I don't know. You said it happened like at 2 a.m.
Three. I think it was like 3:10 in the morning. It was just. And I think it opened. They had it shut down till 10:38 or something like that. And you're talking about major. When they, a lot of times they'll reroute or they'll you can get around stuff. But this was just an insane morning. And look, I'm not complaining about the holdup because somebody's lives were taken. All I'm saying is, anybody out there that is honestly, I don't want to say arrogant. I just want to say, I would say arrogant.
You're arrogant if you think you can handle it while you're drinking and going out and driving. Right.
If you think, and I want to tell you something, this is the truth. Let's say you have 2 beers or 3 beers.
You're buzzed.
Even if you're not buzzed. Now, there are a lot of people out there, Ruth Ann, that can drink a 6. I drank with friends that can drink a case and not even sound drunk. But the problem is, what happens if you have a little tiny accident? You're going to jail.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Even if it's not an accident where anything bad happens, but you get rear-ended or something like that, right? You're going to jail. So I don't want to call you stupid. I'm going to say you're just arrogant, Ruth Ann. You're arrogant to think that you're going to have a few drinks and then I can handle it. I ain't like the rest of those guys. There's truckers out there right now that are listening to this show, seriously, that are alcoholics, and I feel for them. Okay, that can't put it down. Well, I'm going to tell you, and we've talked about this before on the show. If you're an alcoholic and you're driving a tractor trailer and you're not sober, okay, there's a difference, because an alcoholic will tell you, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, but I haven't touched something in 20 years.
Right.
Okay, that's a guy that knows. All right, but if you're a guy that's seriously taking sips, you got stuff in the cab, you're taking sips, I'm going to tell you right now, quit your job.
It's not worth it. It's not worth driving if you could take one small chance where the other person even does something, but you happen to have any alcohol in you. It's not worth the chance that you just took.
Quit your job and okay, well, Troy, if I quit my job, I'm going to lose my house. Quit your job and lose your house. In fact, sell it. Everything's selling high right now. Sell your house. Check yourself in. Get help. And I mean it. Call me. I don't care. Contact the show. I'll try to help you. But I'm telling you right now, it's in the end. Well, I forget that guy's name that did the margarita shots and drank the beer in Pennsylvania. He did it in New Jersey, and then he went over to Harrisburg and rear-ended, stopped traffic, and killed like a baby and a daddy and a couple other people. He got 68 years in prison. He's in prison now for 68 years. He's not getting out. All because he didn't want to lose my house. Well, I don't want to lose my job. He's now, he don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. Okay? He's now bunking with somebody in a 6x10 cell for pretty much the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. Guess what, guys? It's not a matter of if you get in trouble. Odds are against you.
It's going to happen. You cannot avoid it. One of these kids that are texting can come right over to you. You might not even be
at fault.
That's what I'm saying. But you might have your flask or whatever you might have going on in there and have any alcohol in you or in the cab itself. You don't even have to have it ingested in you. You just have to have it in your truck. Yeah. And you're in trouble. You're in a lot of trouble. Okay. 100% when you blow. Okay. And you're, cause it's alcohol is very, for a trucker, it's like 0.01 or something like that. It's very, like, you cannot even have a half a beer in you. I'm serious. Right. You stop at a truck stop and chug a beer down. Your percentage is illegal lower than somebody that gets caught in a car. That's the truth. It very is. You can look it up. So all I'm saying is get help. Quit your job. I don't care if you lose your house. It's better than losing your life. It's better than killing somebody. Mm-hmm. It is. The worst, let me tell you something, just so you know, if you're comparing things, the worst thing that can happen, okay, will happen if you stay driving with booze in you. Okay? The other part of losing your house or losing your job and your career being on hold and maybe being homeless even for a little bit, it's not, trust me, if you're sitting in a prison for the next 40, 50 years, all right, you're going to be wishing that you were homeless and living on the outside. And you're going to be wishing that you would have gotten help because the alternative is worse. It really is, Ruth Ann. I agree. So anyways, I just wanted to mention that accident. It was a bad one. And if any of you drivers were caught in it, send us a message and let us know. We probably went by you. Anyways, Ruth Ann, that is the podcast for the week. It is.
Yeah. Do you have a word of the day or anything like that for anybody?
I do.
Limpet.
So limpet, Limpit.
Limpet.
Limpet. What is? And this is by Word Genius. I like to always announce it. They're not a sponsor of the show, but we love Word Genius and we've adopted them. And Ruth Ann's been kind of getting smarter over the years.
I have. You're still slow on it. But
Yeah, I'm very slow. I don't listen to it.
So limpet is used in comparison to refer to people and things that cling tightly.
Nice.
So I could give you the other definition. The other definition is a marine mollusk, which has a shallow, like a clam, but used in comparison to refer to people and things that cling tightly, a toddler. A toddler is a limpet.
He's a little limpet. That little puppy you got, that's a limpet.
She's adorable and you know it.
Okay. So I think we're out of here.
Peace.
Peace. Praise the Lord.